Okay, so we are going to talk about the overview of Microsoft 365 Copilot APIs, including some Ignite announcement we made. I'm Paolo Pialorsi, and I'm a senior developer advocate working at Microsoft. So let's dig into the topic. At Ignite, we announced that we are going to provide the capability to use a set of APIs to interact with WorkIQ and with Copilot, to have the capability to use the powerful engine of Copilot, not only through the out-of-the-box Copilot user experience, but also in agents created with Copilot Studio, for example, or even in custom-developed solutions, which can be based on custom LLM and platforms, agent platform of your own, or even custom applications that you might build with whatever technology you like. So now let's dig into what the Copilot APIs are and why we can leverage them to do such kind of solutions. Well, the Copilot APIs give us access to the capabilities of Copilot itself through a REST API, a set of REST API endpoint. So from a developer point of view, you can build your own solutions, and you can rely on the engine of Copilot, even outside of Copilot. So you can create your own automated workflows. You can integrate your solution with Copilot. You can give a custom chat-like experience to your end users in a, for example, external website you build, and you simply leverage in the backend the AI power of Copilot and stuff like that. As I said, it is just based on a RESTful architecture, which is built on top of WorkIQ. And you have security in place through Entra ID, which means that whatever kind of interaction you will have with the Copilot APIs, the Entra ID will be there and helping you to have authorization and authentication, of course, even before the authorization part. So every user, even outside of Copilot, just using the Copilot APIs, will be able to retrieve the information that they are allowed to get access to. So what are the APIs that we have right now available through the Copilot API endpoint? The Retrieval API one, which is really powerful whenever you want to do RAG, whenever you want to enrich your own custom developed agents or your custom LLMs, providing content and knowledge coming out from the Microsoft 365 ecosystem through the Retrieval API. We also have the Search API, which allows you to search content in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem using natural language instead of using a search query, a regular search query. You have the Interaction Export APIs, which allows you to export information about the interaction of users with your Microsoft 365 Copilot, so that you can do auditing and monitoring on what's going on, as well as the Change Notification APIs, which will give you, through a set of change notifications, still information about the interaction of users with Microsoft 365 Copilot. Then we have the Meetings Insight APIs, and those APIs are useful whenever you want to get access to meeting notes, to the summary of a meeting, or to all of the information that we can get as end users through Teams whenever we are part of a meeting. But of course, you can do that through a set of RESTful APIs instead of using the out-of-the-box user interface of Teams. And then we have the Chat API, which is the one you can use if you want to create your own custom developed solutions, and still you want to interact with the Copilot chat in the backend, so that you can give to your end users an experience which will allow them to interact with a chat-based system, which in the backend will still be Microsoft 365 Copilot, but through a different user experience, through a different application, which could be a custom website that you develop, or could be a mobile application that you create, or something like that. Okay, so these are the APIs that we have right now in the offering of the Copilot APIs. At Ignite 2025, a couple of weeks ago, we announced the general availability of the Retrieval APIs. So now you can do grounding in your LLMs using the Microsoft 365 enterprise data using the Retrieval API in general availability. And you can also start playing with the chat and search APIs, which are nowadays in public preview. So Now, let me move to the demo environment and let me show you how you can use those API in actions. So let me switch to the other screen. And first of all, I want to share with you, and you can already find a few useful links in the chat. I pasted them at the beginning of this demo. But here you can see the entry page of the Microsoft 365 Copilot API. And as you can see here in this page, you get a reference to all of the different flavors of APIs that we already have right now. And by following these links, you will be brought to the actual explanation of every single API. For example, let's think about the Retrieval API. Here you can see what the Retrieval API is. You can get additional insights about how it works and about licensing and stuff like that. And then you can also learn how to use them. So, for example, you can see how to retrieve data using the Retrieval API. And you can see, and now we have access to that one through the 1.0 endpoint or the beta endpoint of the REST APIs. You can see what the URL is, the one you need to use, and what kind of request and response you are supposed to get. And the same applies for the search and for the chat API as well. So plenty of documentation and content that you can already use to start playing with this technology. But now I want to show you how you can use the Copilot APIs with a low-level REST API consumer. So let me switch to this tool called Bruno, which allows you to play with REST APIs at low level so that we can see how we can practically consume the Copilot APIs. First of all, I'm going to refresh my access token just in case. And as I told you before, we have Microsoft Entra ID in place for security. So I need to get an access token. This will be a delegated access token so that I can access all of the resources that I need to get access to through the Copilot API. And as you can see, here are the permission scopes that I need. And depending on what kind of content and what kind of APIs you want to consume, you might need different permission scopes. And in fact, if we go briefly back to the previous content on the documentation, you can see that depending on what you want to do, for example, if you want to use the Retrieval APIs, you can have the delegated access with file read all and site read all. If you want to go for the Copilot chat, you will need a different set of permissions. And here you can see in the documentation what permissions do we need. So it is fundamental for you, if you want to consume the Copilot APIs, to register an application in Entra ID and to configure the open authorization settings properly so that you can get an access token, a delegated access token with the identity of the user. And through that token, you can then securely consume the Copilot APIs. So now, let's say, for example, that we want to start playing with the Copilot chat API. So we want to have the chat experience we are used to having in the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat, also from an external platform, like it will be this Bruno tool right now. So whenever you want to start a chat with the Copilot chat API, first of all, you need to start the conversation, which means that you need to do some kind of an handshake with the Copilot chat API. And this handshake will simply be a post request to the Copilot/conversation endpoint, as you can see right here. And you will simply send an empty message to that endpoint. The response you will get back will be a conversation setup, which will show you the ID, the unique ID of the conversation we are referring to. So here we have got a new conversation created for me right now with this specific ID. So what I can do now is to go back here, and inside the variables, I'm going to set the conversation ID, which I'm going to use in all of the following requests. So what I can do now that I have a conversation ID is to start little by little to interact and to chat with the Copilot chat API. One thing that I can do is to send a very simple message. Here I'm going to work with a tenant where I have a bunch of content about HR, about career improvements, about stuff like that. So that's why I'm going to provide a prompt like, how can I improve my career? And as you can see, the endpoint for this chat API invocation will be /Copilot/conversation. I need to provide the ID of the conversation that I created and then chat. So I'm sending through a post request a JSON message. I can, and as you will see, we have plenty of options here. I can provide additional information like the time zone I want to refer to and other stuff that we are going to see in the upcoming step. steps, and then I can send this message. At the very end, what I'm doing is using a RESTful API to get from Copilot, from the engine of Microsoft 365 Copilot, the same answer I could get using the Copilot chat, but actually from an external system. And right now I'm using Bruno as my consumer for the Copilot chat API. We should get the response soon. It is most likely taking a while because this network is quite busy being at the conference site. But as soon as it will be ready, I can show you, and here it is, that I got a response from Copilot. This is my prompt, and here I can see the answer from Copilot. And as you can see, the answer is also referring to content that I have inside of my tenant. And this is actually a set of content that you could render in the UI of your own custom developed solution based on the Copilot chat API. But now let's say that we want to do more. And in our scenario, we know that we have a bunch of content stored in a specific set collection in SharePoint Online. So what I'm going to do now is to ask Copilot through the Copilot Chat API to summarize a document for me. And actually, I'm also providing some contextual resources in the request. Through this additional property in the request, I can specify that I want to refer to one or more files in the request. So it is like when you create a prompt in the Copilot Chat and you add one or more files to enrich the context of the prompt you are sending to Copilot. That's exactly the same story. Now I'm referring to a document that I have in this tenant, which is about the policies for an hypothetical insurance company, and I'm asking to summarize the document that I'm targeting. So let's see what happens now. And again, I'm triggering the same endpoint as before, so Copilot conversation, the conversation ID /chat, and I'm providing this different JSON with additional contextual resources to make my request richer from a context point of view. I'm going to get back my answer. And as you can see, I'll get back the summary of my document with all of the information I was looking for and with the reference to the document that was used to provide the actual response with the annotation to the document. But we can even do more, and little by little I'm going to show you all of the options. We can, for example, choose if we want to rely on the web content or not. So while I'll explain you, let me trigger it so we can save a bit of time. But here I'm saying that, okay, I want to know how can I improve my career as I did before. But now I want to be sure that the response I'm going to get will be only based on the content that I have in my tenant. So I said, okay, is web enabled? False. So I'm not going to rely on any content available on the web. I'm just going to rely on all of the content that I have in my tenant. So this is like when you disable the web content in the Copilot chat. Or one more demo here, we can say, and let me again run it, and then I will explain you what's going on. I can still go back to the car insurance scenario. Here I can say, what are the policies for auto insurance? And I can give additional context to the Copilot Chat API, which means here I can define a set of instructions for my Copilot Chat API. And here I say that you are an insurance agent and you provide professional advice about insurance-related topics. Use emojis to improve the quality of the output. So sounds like we are using a custom agent built on the fly based on the JSON request we are sending to the Copilot Chat API, because we are providing the instructions right here. Plus, we can still provide, if we like, a set of contextual resources, and we can enable or disable the web content as we did before. So plenty of options to fine-tune the input of the request for the Copilot Chat API to get a really customized response that we can then render in a target application. And just to give you an idea of the art of possible, let me briefly switch to an application that I have right here. Sorry, not on this screen, but on this other screen. Okay. And let me start it and show you what I'm talking about. So let me run this web application. This is a React-based web application that I created, and inside this application I'm using the Copilot Chat API to give to the end users an experience which is the one we can have relying on the Copilot Chat API. So let me copy the URL of the website, and let me go back to the browser, and let's access the website. Well, this is a custom developed portal that I created, and in this one, for the Java insurance company, I can sign in as a user. I need to sign in because I need to be authenticated to have a delegated access token in order to access the content of my tenant, and actually I need to use a different account. Sorry about that. Just a second. Okay, most likely I will need to do the multi-factor authentication. Okay, and let's see. Give me a sec, and I'm doing this multi-factor authentication here. Of course, my token expired suddenly. Sorry about that. But so you can see that security is completely in place because we need to go through it. Okay, so, and here we are. And now I'm fully authenticated. So now I'm in my tenant, I'm authenticated. And as you can see here on the right side, I have a chat. This chat relies on the Copilot Chat API. So I can say, what are the policies for auto insurances, for example. And by simply doing that, I can trigger the Copilot Chat API, and I can give to my end users the experience of Copilot outside of Copilot, because this is, as I said, a custom developed website built with React and TypeScript. So completely custom solution which I can host wherever I want. And of course, in order to be able to do so, I will need to have an authenticated user to make the request. And here we have the response from my Copilot engine. So that's really interesting and cool. So let me go back briefly to Bruno and see what we can do with the retrieval APIs and with the search APIs. So when it comes to the retrieval APIs, the way of using it is almost the same as before, but we have a different endpoint. So we have Copilot/retrieval. When we use the retrieval API, we provide a query string as natural language. And in the query string in natural language, we can provide what we are looking for as the reg data to enrich the knowledge base of a model, of a large language model or a small language model that we want to use in a custom AI solution. Here, for example, again, in the context of the insurance company, I want to retrieve the claims policies for claims of type auto in region USA. I want to use SharePoint as the data source, which means that I have a set of documents in my SharePoint Online tenant, and I want to retrieve for all of those documents the title, the author, and the actual chunks of content which are meaningful related to the prompt I provided in the query string. And I want to get the top 10 results. So let me trigger this request. And in a matter of few seconds, I will be able to see that I can get back the documents which are in target for my prompt, together with the chunks of the content I have in those documents, so that I can use this content as the additional knowledge for an AI-based solution, as you can see right here. And I can also see the relevance score for each of the chunks that I've got back from the Retrieval API. Again, how can we use this in a real production scenario? Well, let me switch to another demo I have here. This is an agent that I created, and it is actually a custom engine agent. So one of those agents which have a fully custom large language model and orchestrator. In this one, we use GPT-4o Mini, and we use an orchestrator of our own that I have built using the agent framework. So here I can say, for example, give me the details about a specific claim that I want to manage in the Java insurance agent. I will get back a bunch of information about the claim that I provided. And since the claim is an auto claim, so it is a car crash issue, I can do stuff like, for example, I can check the compliance of this claim with the rules we have in our company. So I can say check compliance for claim, and actually behind the scenes there will be a set of content stored in SharePoint Online, the content I was using before with the Retrieval API, where I have the claim policies for auto insurances or for homeowners insurances. And the auto one is the one I'm interested in. So I can say check compliance for claim. And as you will see right here, now the custom engine agent is going to interact with the retrieval APIs of Copilot, as you can see right here. It was able to retrieve the additional information from and through the retrieval API. And now through the LLM, it is actually evaluating if my claim is compliant or not, and how it is compliant with the rules we have in SharePoint Online. Even if this custom engine agent is running outside and it is a custom developed solution. So it is so true that let me show you what happens under the cover very briefly. In this custom engine agent, I have, here we are, an agent, the Java insurance agent, which inherits from agent application from the agent framework and agent SDK. And here we say that for claims compliance in the instructions for the agent, use this specific plugin. The plugins are components that you can configure using the agent framework in a custom engine agent. And here, for example, I have a claims policies plugin, which I instantiate right here and I use right here, where I say, whenever you want to check the compliance of a policy, go to this plugin and do the actual check. In the claims policy plugin, I simply make use of the Retrieval API of Copilot. So I say retrieve the claims, which is actually the prompt and the query I shared with you just before in the Bruno UI for SharePoint for this specific content. And once I make the request and I provide the access token to secure the request to WorkIQ and to the Copilot Retrieval API, I can simply prepare a specific prompt for my LLM where I say, okay, these are all of the information about my claim. Here is the content I retrieved through the Retrieval APIs. Let's process if this claim is compliant with the policy or not, and give me back a response, a result with a compliance score. So as you can see, I'm using the Retrieval API to do RAG in a custom developed AI solution like a custom engine agent. Last but not least, and then we can wrap up, let me go to Bruno one more time and let's have a quick look at the search API. So this is really simple and straightforward. You want to search something, you provide a query in natural language, you target the Copilot /search endpoint, and here, for example, I'm looking for what are the insurance policies for claims in our insurance company. Let's trigger this endpoint and this request, and we can get back just a list of search results. So if you compare this behavior with the one we've got with the Retrieval API, in the Retrieval API, we got also the score, we got also the chunks of content that we can use as additional knowledge for the model, the AI model we want to use the additional knowledge with and stuff like that. Here, we simply make a search request and we get back a list of items, documents in this scenario, which are matching the search criteria that I provided. And for each of them, we can see a brief preview that we can use to render the search result in the output of our custom developed application. So different options for different scenarios. The chat API to create a bot-like experience based on Copilot in the backend, but in your own custom UI. The Retrieval API when you want to enrich the knowledge base and do RAG in a custom AI solution. And the Search API if you want to rely on search capabilities in your custom developed solutions, still backed by the Copilot engine of Microsoft 365 Copilot. So plenty of options to create really powerful solutions. That said, just as a wrap-up, few useful links that you can already find in the chat. So the Copilot API,
Can you hide the reminders?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I didn't see them. Okay. The Copilot APIs, the Copilot Retrieval API and chat and search APIs, as well as the Copilot Dev Camp, because they are early next year, we are going to release a bunch of new labs about how to use the Copilot APIs in your own applications. So that said, thank you, and back to you, Vesa.
Excellent, thank you, Paolo. That one really exciting stuff, and super cool to see this finally being available. And again, I think that the most powerful thing is the fact that you do not have to have any additional cost or licensing or anything else. As long as you have the Copilot license, all of this is within your usage. So do we have an API to check? Do we have a Copilot license from a user perspective? Is there an easy way to validate that? Sorry, putting you on the spot, Paolo.
Well, I think we have APIs to check what licenses a user does have. So
yes,
I think we can
so
use that.
Technically there could be a pattern where you say, does the user have a Copilot license? And if they have, enable the functionality, and then you can actually do that. And no additional cost. I think that's the key point, because a few years back, we were always asking for additional, let's say, execution cost on these APIs, and that is not there, which is really, really cool. Awesome stuff.